the helpful people at Shell. And Hankook Tire, makers of tires designed to compete, priced to win. Driver's Seat with Ted Laturnis and Tony Whitney.
Welcome to the show. This week we're going to do something different. We're on location testing some of the smallest and cheapest cars in the marketplace.
We've got 10 cars to look at, and we're going to tell you what we'd pick if we were in the market for these cars.
And the cars are the VW Fox, the Suzuki Swift, the Honda Civic, the Hyundai Excel, the Mazda 323, the Geo Metro, Toyota's Tercel, the Plymouth Colt, the Ford Festiva, and, last but not least, the Subaru Justy.
While Tony takes the Suzuki out for a drive, I'm going to talk about the Volkswagen Fox for a few minutes. The Volkswagen Fox is made in Brazil by Volkswagen. It's a fairly old-fashioned design, comes as a 2- or a 4-door sedan. This is a 2-door, obviously. Has a pretty large trunk, the biggest in this group. Let's take it out for a spin. The strongest point of the Fox, of course, is the engine. This is a 1.8-litre four-cylinder engine that is also used in the Golf and the Jetta, and in a slightly different form in the Passat. So it's widely used in the Volkswagen lineup and is, as they say, proven. It's a good engine, and I'm quite happy with it. On the other hand, you can only get a 4-speed manual transmission with this model of Fox. You can order a 5-speed, but I think a 5-speed should come with the car, so that's a bit of a drawback. They've also cut some corners elsewhere. The heating controls and instrumentation is very, very basic. You get a gas gauge, a temperature gauge, and idiot lights. That's about it. And for reasons that I don't understand, you get a clock as opposed to a tachometer. I think a tachometer is more important than a clock. Also, you can't get an outside rear view passenger side mirror, which I think, again, is a drawback. So it's a good package, but it's a little basic. And the price for the Fox is $9,750.
So how's the Fox doing?
It's okay. It's a little old-fashioned, but it's got good power, lots of room, and I like it with some reservations.
Well, when I drove it, I thought that with that 1.8 engine, it's got a refinement beyond its class, in fact.
Yeah, I think it's about time that Volkswagen did a bit of a refit with it. It's got to be brought up to speed compared to the rest of the cars, but it's okay.
Yeah, well, we've got lots more to look at. Now we'll take a look at this one. The Suzuki Swift is a good example of advanced small car styling. It's very smooth, very aerodynamic. All the window glass is flush with the bodywork. The headlights are flush. It's a very slippery package. It's a hatchback, and you can fold down the back seat, and you've got lots of stowage space. So let's see how it shapes up. The Swift is powered by a 1.3-litre four-cylinder engine that puts out about 70 horsepower. The 5-speed manual transmission was very good, very slick and very smooth. Trouble with this car was that the steering was very heavy when parking. A small car is very easy to park normally, but the steering in this one was very heavy. Engine noise was a little bit high at high res, pretty common in this class of car. The interior, very much like the exterior, was excellent, a very nice piece of work. Everything very easy to read, all the controls easy to reach, and very wide and comfortable seats. The price of the car, $7,895.
Now, what do you think?
Well, it's a fun car to drive. It's not as refined as the Fox, but it's sporty. It's quite agile, and it's quite
I found the suspension to be a little on the harsh side, and the engine's a little too loud for my taste. This is not a quiet car to drive.
No, it's not. The engine's quite noisy at high revs, and it is a bit harsh. And
it's also got very heavy steering with that little tiny grip on the steering wheel. Parking the car is not that easy.
It's tough to park. You need to be a real Schwarzenegger to park this one. It's tough to park. It's a big problem with this car. Power steering would be a help.
Well, anyway, next up is the Honda Civic, which I'm kind of looking forward to, actually. Up until now, the Civic's been the industry leader in this category, but as you can see, it's been completely restyled from top to bottom. This is basically a brand new car. And the first thing that bothers me about it are these. These are all new, and I don't like them at all. I feel they should be this way. Let's take it out on the road and see what happens. Like last year's model, the new Civic is powered by a 1.5-litre four-cylinder engine that develops 70 horsepower. It also comes with a 5-speed transmission, which is nice. But the most remarkable thing about this car is the quality of construction. It's a beautifully made car. Everything about the car speaks of research. They put a lot of time into the car. It shows. Everything fits nicely. The gauges are all easy to read. The controls fit like a glove. A little bleak on the instrumentation. All you get is a gas gauge and a temperature gauge and some idiot lights. And you don't get a passenger side rear view mirror either, which I think is kind of a drawback. But this is a beautifully made car and the best one yet. They tell me you can get one for just under $10,000, $9,995 to be precise. I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, the question is, Ted, is it that much better than the last one?
I think it is in certain respects. I'm still trying to decide about the styling, whether I like it or not. But one thing is for sure, the quality of construction is beautiful. I mean, it's very, very well made.
Well, Honda's always had something of preeminence with small car construction. They really haven't. This car is not that much different than, say, a Honda Accord in the terms of quality. And maybe it's better than some of the others, like the Swift and even the Fox.
You'll have to go some to beat the quality. Well, we've got a lot of cars to look at yet, but you'll have to go some to beat this one.
Well, I like the styling, and I'd like to see it maybe wrapped around the Fox motor.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 3 down and 7 to go. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Advertise.
Then Robert R. Montgomery, owner of Beetle, wed Sarah Jane Anderson and begat Leslie Ann Montgomery, Daisy, daughter of Duke, Polly.
Welcome back to our small car special. Ted's out now testing the Mazda 323, and I'm going to take a look at the Hyundai Excel, which has been restyled lately. The front end is particularly well done. It still remains rather a generic hatchback design, although there are some interesting aerodynamic features, like the doors that flow up into the roofline here. Having a hatchback, of course, means that the rear seat will fold, again allowing lots of luggage space. The Excel is powered by a 1.5-litre 4-cylinder engine driving the front wheels. It produces about 81 horsepower. If anything, it's a little bit rough feeling. It's not as smooth as some engines in this class. The 4-speed manual transmission is very smooth, though, works very well, and is better than many more expensive vehicles. The interior is excellent, very well done. It's roomy, there's lots of shoulder room, lots of leg room, and lots of headroom. Instrumentation is quite sparse. There's no tachometer, for example. But the controls are very easy to reach. The heater controls and the radio are very easy to reach. There's also more room in the back seat than you might imagine for a car in this size. The price of the car is $7,695.
Well, how's it stack up?
Well, the Koreans are getting better all the time, Ted. There's one thing that I don't like about the car. The engine is a little bit on the rough side.
Well, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of the last cars around that actually has a carburetor.
That's right. You have to really search the market these days to find a car that doesn't have fuel injection. This does have a carb, and maybe that's part of the problem.
I like the restyling job. I think it looks much more whole than it used to. It doesn't look quite as amateurish, I guess.
No, it's not quite so boxy. It's still a little bit generic to my eyes, but it's still a good-looking car, and it's got a nice interior. There's lots of room in it.
Yeah,
and it's
I got to cut you off there, Tony. The 323 is what I got to talk about next. When Mazda restyled the 323 last year, it was kind of controversial. A lot of people thought they were copying Peugeot too closely. It's true. It looks like the 205. I think it works well, and I think this is one of the best-looking cars in this group. Really like it a lot. The 323 has been a surprise of this group. I wasn't really ready for a car this nicely made inside. They've done a beautiful job. I don't like the layout as much as the Civic. It's not as comfortable looking, but it certainly is comfortable to drive. The seats, although they're covered in this funny industrial strength upholstery, are very, very comfortable. Instrumentation is a little on the bleak side. No passenger side mirror again as usual. But overall, this is a nicely built car. It's powered by a 1.6-litre 4-cylinder engine that develops 82 horsepower, so it's one of the faster cars in this group. The engine is beautifully refined, quiet, nice power band. They've done a beautiful job on the car. And you can get it for just under $10,000, $9,095.
Well, Ted, do you like this one as much as I do?
Probably. I wasn't prepared for the refinement of the engine. This is probably the most quiet and refined engine in this group. Very powerful, very silent. I was very impressed with it.
Well, I'd go farther than that. I'd say that the drivetrain, the combination of the engine and gearbox, it's very, very sporty. The car is very quick. It's very responsive.
Yeah. It's not as warm inside as the Civic, for example. The interior is kind of bleak and kind of Spartan.
Well,
it is okay,
so.
But
well, it has a rather horrible plastic upholstery, and I guess if you took a notch up in the sort of range, you'd get a better interior. But this one is rather bleak, as you say.
Still a very good car, though.
Well, I think the quality is just excellent. Okay, time for me to get to grips with the Metro. Now, the Metro is actually built for General Motors by Suzuki, and it's exactly the same as the Suzuki Swift that we looked at earlier, which means it's a state-of-the-art small car, very smooth design, very clean, flush window glass all around. It is a hatchback, so there's lots of room in the back when you fold the seats down. The Geo Metro is powered by a tiny 1-litre 3-cylinder engine. Produces just 52 horsepower. Now, this is a very small engine. It's very buzzy. Even at low speeds, it makes quite a lot of noise. Now, to compensate for that, it does have a 5-speed gearbox. And in that 5th speed on the freeway, it's not quite so noisy. Now, the car handles quite well. It's quite a nice car to drive, except for that noisy engine. And, of course, the performance isn't that great. The interior, as the exterior, the interior is very much like the Suzuki Swift, its close cousin, which means that it's pretty good. Now, it's quite Spartan in this car. GM seems to have ordered Suzuki to make them a little bit simpler, and there's not too much equipment in it, but it remains a comfortable car. Rear seat passengers get lots of headroom and then lots of legroom. It's really quite a comfortable car for 4 people. The price, $8,590.
Well, that's the worst car of the group you got there, Tony.
Well, I think you're right, Ted. It's got 3 cylinders, and it really feels as though it's got 3 cylinders. It's got very little power. It's very noisy and kind of feels tinny.
Yeah, agricultural is the word that comes to mind. Although I will say in its defense that it does get good gas consumption. And in this market, that is important. There's more to the car than just whether it costs a little bit of money or not.
Well, that's true. There's a lot of people who want maximum economy will forgive it a little bit of roughness in the engine, and that's fair enough. I mean, you do have a good choice in the market these days, and if you want economy, this is the car to buy.
Just for the sake of argument, why couldn't they put a 4-cylinder engine in there? It would be just about as good, right?
Well, they didn't save much money, I don't think. I think it's just a matter of General Motors going to Suzuki and saying, build this down to a price, and this is what they ended up with.
Yeah. Anyway, we got to go. That's 6 down and 4 to go. Stay with us. The Toyota Tercel, which received a complete restyle last year. You can tell the base level because it has recessed headlights. The next model up has flush headlights. Anyway, the car is much more streamlined than it used to be, but Toyota are out of the hatchback business. It only comes as a 2-door or a 4-door sedan. My biggest problem with the Tercel is that it's so bleak inside. You really don't get much car for the money here. Yes, you do get Toyota's 1.5-liter 12-valve 4-cylinder, which is good for 82 horsepower. And it's a good engine. It's peppy, good gas consumption, no complaint there. But you can only get a 4-speed manual transmission with this model. If you want a 5-speed, you have to pay for it. And it's, you should get a 5-speed with this car, really, I think so. And the inside is so bleak and unfriendly. The seats have got this horrible taxi cab grade Naugahyde covering on them. Everything is hard, cold, brittle plastic. A very unfriendly car to spend any time in. And I really think that Toyota should have put cloth in it somewhere because I don't want to spend any time in this car. Good price, though. You can get it for $8,628. Well, when Toyota called this their base model, they're not kidding, are they?
Well, that's right. It is pretty much of a strip, and it reflects the fact that Japanese companies are finding it harder to compete with features.
Yeah. It has a good drivetrain. I like the engine of this thing. I also like the gearbox, but unfortunately, you can only get a 4-speed with it, and the linkage, you need some refining.
It's a little bit clunky. I like the styling, though. It looks to me rather like a mini Lexus. I think it looks very pretty indeed.
It doesn't have Lexus interior. This is like a taxi cab inside. Very bleak.
Well, it is. There's too much shiny, hard black plastic, and it doesn't have a very nice feel to it inside. But the car, there is that promise of Toyota reliability, which is almost legendary.
That's a given. They're hoping that people will step up to the Corolla, I guess, by giving them a real cheap car to start with.
Well, that's right. One thing I regret, though, that you can't get a hatchback now for a version of this car at all.
No, you can't. That's true, yeah.
Okay, now it's time for me to look at the Colt. The Colt has to be one of the most attractive hatchbacks on the market. It's got very sleek and attractive lines. The nose job is particularly good with its narrow halogen lights. Our car was spoiled by some rather tacky aftermarket stripes and also by oppressive tinted rear windows. The Colt is built by Mitsubishi in Japan, and therefore it's a well-built, typically Japanese car. It's powered by a 1.5-litre 4-cylinder engine, and this is mated to a 4-speed manual gearbox. The engine is something of a surprise, very responsive, good acceleration. Gearbox works very well too, with a good linkage system. Inside the car, it's a mixture of good and bad. While most of the switches are easy to reach and are well made and quite well laid out, there are some tacky touches which tend to spoil the car. On the road, it's pretty good. Not too much vibration, fairly quiet engine at higher speeds, and it handles pretty well too. The price, $7,820.
Well, did you like it as much as I did?
I did. I think the drivetrain is particularly good on this car. The engine is excellent and the gearbox is great, and I like the steering. It's a very nice, just the right amount of assist. It's just great.
Yeah, it is good. A lot of people overlook Mitsubishi products, and they shouldn't, because this is a very good car. It's like the Galant. You don't hear much about it, but it's a very good car.
Well, that's true. I think people shopping in this market, they think Civic and so forth, but they forget that the Colt's a very good product. Mitsubishi has a very good reputation for reliability, and they often come on top of reliability polls and so forth.
I don't know why they hide their light under a bushel, but they do, and it's a mistake. And I put this car right up near the top of my list.
Yeah, well, the styling is nice too, because it is a good-looking car. It's a pretty decent piece of work, and it feels good. You know, some cars, it's spoiled for me quite a lot by tacky interior.
Yeah. Okay, next up is the Ford Festiva. Now, the Festiva is made in Korea by Kia, who are partially owned by Mazda, who are partially owned by Ford. And that's where you'll find it, at Ford dealerships. Right off the bat, I got to say, this car is ugly. Although I may not like the look of the Festiva very much, one thing I will say about it is it has a lot of room inside it. Headroom particularly, it's very, very good. You know, when you consider the size of the car, it's quite amazing. This is the roomiest car of its size in this group, and I was very impressed with it. Also, a lot of backseat legroom. This is a very roomy car. It may not look like it, but it is. It's powered by a 1.3-liter four-cylinder engine, and it comes with a 4-speed manual transmission. You can order a 5-speed, but the 4-speed is what it comes with. Interior layout, a little bleak, not much in the way of instrumentation, but all in all, a very nice package, very comfortable, and quite good performance. This was a nice surprise, this one. You could pick one of these little puppies up for a pretty good price as well, $8,211.
Well, Ted, just 2 to go, so how's the Festiva?
Well, I still think it's ugly, but it's nicer to drive than I thought it was going to be.
Drives nicely. I think it's a little bit too cute for my taste. It's very short and stubby, and it's quite high. Now, the problem is, I think that you do get that wonderful headroom inside. It may look bad on the outside, but you get the room inside.
Personally, I hate cute. The other thing I don't like about the car is I don't like the size of the wheels. They're far too small. They're like something you'd see on a shopping cart, and I think they should go up one more size for the wheels. You'd get much better handling, especially when there's people in the car.
Well, that's true. I mean, you don't expect handling to be too good in a car like this, but of course the tires do wear quickly too in that configuration.
Some of the other cars in our group that are of this size are 3-cylinder engines. This has a 4-cylinder, and to me it makes all the difference in the world.
Doesn't that make a difference? You know, it's almost like moving from a 4 to a 6. It's so smooth and quiet. It's quite refined. It makes the car feel much better than it's any right to be.
I have to say the car was a pleasant surprise in just about every area.
Okay, now it's time for our last car, the Subaru Justy. The Justy is built in Japan, and like the Festiva, it's a boxy little hatchback. It's no state-of-the-art styling job like the Suzuki Swift. Nonetheless, it's a very nice little car with lots of room inside. The little Justy is powered by a 1.2-litre 3-cylinder engine with 9 valves that develops 66 horsepower. Now, like the Geo, our other 3-cylinder car, the engine is a little bit rough, makes quite a lot of noise, and it's quite buzzy at high speeds. The 5-speed gearbox works quite well, though, and the car is fairly quick to buzz around the city in. The interior is very well done, the only car of our group to have a tachometer. Radio and heater controls are very easy to get at, and this is the only car of our group which you can buy in 4-wheel drive for a few extra bucks. Price of the Justy, $7,759.
So what do you think of the only 9-valve engine in the group?
Well, it's very much a 3-cylinder. It's like the Geo, it's quite rough and quite buzzy and so forth, and it's certainly no car for handling, but it's nonetheless a nice little car, and economical too.
I don't agree with your comment about the styling. I quite like the look of it. I know it's a little old-fashioned, but I do like it. You know, before I drove it, I was going to put this thing near the top of my list, but the engine is so loud. I mean, you get up in any kind of speed, the engine is just roaring.
It is very loud, and I think it's a contender, all right. There's no question about that. And of course, if it had 4-wheel drive, which doesn't cost too much extra, it would be very much a contender. But it remains quite a well-equipped little car. I mean, it has a tachometer, for example, and I quite like the feel of the interior, even though it's not by no means luxurious.
It's well made, and I do like the engine. I like the technology. I admire the technology. 3 cylinders with 3 valves per cylinder to me is interesting. Only Subaru would do that. But now they got to work on sound deadening because the engine overwhelms the car at any kind of speed. You have to turn the radio up just to hear it, right?
Well, I think so. No, I've never driven a 3-cylinder that was any better than this, really. I mean, we're saying, a lot of people are quite willing to forgive a little bit of roughness to get the economy and so forth and the configuration of the car, which is very practical.
Right. Got to cut you off there. Well, that's it. We've looked at all the cars, and join us when we return for Auto Info and our final results.
Auto Info.
Thanks, Nancy. And now it's time for the moment of truth. We're going to rank these cars with Ted up first. What are your top 3, Ted?
Okay, number 3 for me is the Mazda 323. I think Mazda's done a very nice job restyling it. It's a pleasure to drive. Number 2 is the Colt. Almost as good as the 323, but better because it's less money. Number 1, far and away, though, is a Honda Civic. It's a beautifully styled car, has a simple elegance about it that the other cars just don't have, and I think it's the best car in this group, far and away.
Well, so we differ. My third choice is the Suzuki Swift, a fun car with state-of-the-art styling. Number 2, the Honda Civic, an excellent all-around car, maybe the best all-around car in the bunch, but it had some shortcomings as far as I was concerned. My number 1 car, definitely the Mazda 323. It's got a great drivetrain, super gearbox and engine, suspension's very good, handles well, and it feels all of a piece. A very sporty car, definitely my number 1.
And that's it for our ECONOBOX special. If you're in the market for this kind of car, we hope we've pointed you in the right direction at least.
Coming soon on